Getting a clear picture of that audience is really the first step towards making your brand memorable, because you're going to take those action steps of actually communicating to them in a way that they respond very positively. They like those styles of communication. Hey, and welcome back to Builder Funnel TV. In today's video, we are going to talk about branding. And branding can be one of those things that is a little bit trickier to figure out because it's not all about data. And there's a lot of other components and variables that go into branding. And I actually just sat down on a podcast and talked with one of our team members about this topic. And I figured, hey, let's break it down and talk about a few of the critical elements that you need to think about if you want to create a memorable brand. First things first is you have to know your audience. Now, this may seem like a counterintuitive step or just something where you're going, I need to know my audience. How does that have anything to do with logos or color schemes or any of that? But it all starts with that piece of really understanding who that perfect customer is, because a lot of those brand elements that go into that, like core values and color schemes and the way you communicate, all of those things are going to be directed at reaching and communicating with your target audience and your core audience. So it's really important that you get very, very clear on who that is. So maybe it is a certain age bracket, maybe it's certain areas of town, maybe it's certain people that have various interests in terms of like hobbies or lifestyles. Maybe it's people that are in certain stages of their life, whether that's no kids or they have a family or they're empty nesters, but really getting a clear picture on who you're serving, even the types of occupations or personalities and kind of the people that you want to attract. So knowing your audience is one of the most important steps of brand, because all of those things are going to go in towards speaking to that person. So you think about your logo, your color scheme, your Facebook posts, your blog posts, your emails, the way you communicate with them in the sales process, when you're on site as, once they're a customer, like all of that goes into tone and messaging. And so you want to be really clear on who that is and how you're going to speak to them, how you're going to communicate to them. Getting a clear picture of that audience is really the first step towards making your brand memorable, because you're going to take those action steps of actually communicating to them in a way that they respond very positively. They like those styles of communication. So that is the first thing. The next step is making sure your logo and your branding is really cohesive. So a lot of times what happens is you create a brand and maybe you've created a style guide, or maybe you haven't, and you've just created a logo and you figure, okay, this is my brand. And that's really just one piece of the brand. But as you start to develop more material, you have a website, you have a logo, you have trucks that are wrapped, you have signs that you start creating, you have business cards, you have letterhead, you create brochures or pamphlets or things that you leave behind with the customer. You've got all these different things. Then you branch into social media and you've got even more stuff going on. So it's important that all of these things are cohesive, they go together, and they're all under that umbrella. If you have all of these pieces that look a little bit different, the fonts are different, the colors aren't quite the exact same, then that just becomes a fragmented brand, and you get all of these pieces that kind of are close. But if we're really trying to be memorable in the eyes of our customers, all of that stuff has to be super dialed in, because they're not seeing it as often as you are. You see it every day, you see it all the time, you're thinking about it. If they're only seeing it, once a week, a couple times a month, maybe even less frequently, based on how interactive they are and how much in the research process they are, then they're really not going to see it that often. So you really need it to be pretty dialed in. All right, so let's talk about the third thing, which is having a really well-designed website. Now, this is a very critical piece today, because no matter where they see you, whether it's a job site sign, a billboard, a newspaper, social media, they do a Google search, they hear about you from a friend, like they ultimately end up at the website. And that's going to be a core part of their experience with you, is browsing that, looking at project pictures, learning more about your process, meeting team members on the team page, learning about core values, anything that you have to communicate, the website is really going to be the central piece for how they learn about that. So it's really important that your website looks sharp, it looks professional, and you have really, really good photography that represents the quality of work that you do. But you also want to make sure within all of this that you're using that logo and it's consistent with everything else. The fonts are all on brand, and you're not kind of deviating too far with a lot of the stuff that you kind of add to a website over time. So that is a really important piece. And if we're trying to be memorable in terms of that prospect or that customer that's coming to the website, you really want that website to pop and to stand out and to have really good information. So when somebody's getting there and they look at a couple projects and they start reading the content, they're going, wow, this really resonates with me. And so that is the look and feel, but it's also the messaging and it's the tone that you're writing with. And that goes back to that first one of knowing your audience. So is the copy, is the text, is that actually connecting with that person? And if it does, then you're going to stand out and you're going to be more memorable. So the website is a really, really critical piece of having somebody actually remember who you are and not just kind of blending in and looking like all the other sites out there. All right, so let's talk about the fourth one, which is have a little bit of personality. I feel like a lot of times we feel like business has to be, super professional and I can't go outside the lines at all. And so we end up making everything kind of fit into this professionalism box. But I think that actually limits you and it makes you look like everybody else. But if you kind of have some of that personality coming out of your brand, a lot of times it comes from the owner's personality or the owner's core values or some of those types of things, and those get blended into the company's core values and the tone and the messaging. But if you're laid back and you like to have fun and joke around, incorporate some of that into the brand. It doesn't have to go all the way to that end of the spectrum. You can still have professionalism and be a little bit laid back, or inserting some jokes here or there. And so think about what kind of vibe you're giving off as a company in terms of the tone and brand in terms of personality, and if your company was a person, what kind of qualities would it be giving off? And that is something that makes you memorable because one, it stands out, but most people have a unique personality. And so it's really tough to clone that. So if a competitor is they're like, man, this brand over here is really strong. If they try to copy it, it just feels inauthentic because that's not who they are. And so it's more of being who you are, embracing who you are, and then communicating that and letting some of that out through your social posts, your email, and even on the website through some of the copy. You don't have to write it as just kind of these blah paragraphs of text. You can have a little bit of fun, or if fun isn't part of your brand, it can be any number of other qualities, but let that come out and that will go a really long way towards making your brand super memorable. The other thing is include some personal brands within this. So if you have people within your company, try to let some of their qualities come out. And that can just be through social media, or if you want to get some people in front of the camera and start recording videos, that's even better. But even if it's just showcasing some of your team members and what they're doing and kind of having some of their voices come out through some of the messaging, whether it's social or email or through some video. But that can be really powerful because you can have those voices start to connect with other people that maybe they're resonating with the company brand, but then they really deeply connect with one of the team members. And they're actually able to do that before they meet anyone on your team in person. And so it really allows people to connect and bond with you first before they've talked to you on the phone or met with you in person. And again, when we think about trying to be memorable, that is a really powerful differentiator. If somebody goes to your website and your social and they check you out and they kind of connect and they're like, wow, this is really cool. Maybe you have some commonality that gets formed, and then they go look at a competitor and it's just kind of the same old usual stuff. They're going to remember you and you're going to stand out. So there you have it. There are a few strategies and things to think about when you're trying to make your brand memorable in the eyes of your prospects and your customers. All right, guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more information like this and to learn all about our process here at Builder Funnel. We have a free trial open for Builder Funnel Academy. You can just go to that URL and click and sign up and get access to all the content there. Plus, you'll get access to the community where we ask and answer all kinds of marketing questions. So you can jump in there, ask community questions in the forum, and you can join the live monthly Q&A calls. All right, guys, see you next time here on Builder Funnel TV.